Like July's main event, it was the supremacy of the first names. We had Rafael versus Rafael coming up this weekend, both making the respective UFC debuts at strawweight. We have Mexico's Yazmin Jauregui taking on Brazil's Iasmin Lucindo. And Matt, when I look at this fight, I've watched a lot of tape, obviously, on both these fighters, but my point being is, watched a lot of combate for Jauregui, and when I was watching it, they called her Jasmine, they called her Yasmin, they call her Yasmin. I'm going to call her Jauregui, and she's taking on Lucindo. Jauregui, Lucindo.
Lucindo.
That's how we don't get it mixed up. So, for the fighter out of Tijuana, Mexico, coming out of Entram Gym, and she is a very, very interesting prospect. Made her MMA debut at 18, or rather 19, which is kind of crazy to see. Not as crazy as her opponents, because she made her debut way younger. But when you do look at it for Jauregui, she's 23, really rounding out into her own. 2021 Combate tournament champion. You love to see that. Campbell McLaren goes insane in those promos.
Does he ever?
And they get me excited, and then I go, hey, in Canada, how do I watch Combate again? Oh, it's really hard. Oh, to find these clips, I have to go on Facebook? Oh, so it's for my grandmother? My grandmother's watching Combate?
I mean, she watched Ferguson versus Pettis. That's a pretty famous story at this point, so maybe.
Went to bed ahead of Khabib McGregor. But when I do watch Jauregui, you do look at her in the Combate tournament. They have it as 3-round fights over with Topology.
The old Phoenix series, isn't it, though?
Yeah, it was a lot of one-rounders. So she was able to get the wins over Claire Lopez, over Crisaida Adames, and then Stephanie Frausta. In those matchups, though, good takedown defense, good clinch work, and holy smokes, is she a technical boxer for this division.
Very dynamic.
Doesn't really throw a lot of kicks. I was really, really, really impressed by what I saw out of both these women, but just to start with the fighter on the left with Yazmin Jauregui. I think that, you know, if she can keep up the really good takedown defense, if she can implement this boxing, I think she's going to be a talent at 23 in this division for a really long time.
I gotta be honest, though, this is one of those great fights where the outcome doesn't really matter as much as we probably think, because for Jauregui and for Lucindo, they're both extremely young, not only in their careers, but in life as well. We were just talking about a 30-year-old heavyweight who has a lot of room to improve. We're talking about a 23-year-old and a 20-year-old fighter who both have great foundations to build upon, but for Jauregui right now, I agree with you 100%. Not only does she have great boxing, it's damaging boxing too, and I think that's very important because she's not someone who has to go out there, rely on the jab, rely on the right hand, and really set up her power shots. Her shots just have a natural damage to them, and I really do like that in this division because at strawweight, a lot of very technical strikers, but not a lot of knockout artists. Now, I'm not here to tell you that Jauregui is the next coming of Jessica Andrade, but I do really like what I've seen out of her on the regional scene, and I love how she can mix up her body attack with uppercuts too. Everyone knows how good Mike Tyson is, uppercut, left hook. Not like Jauregui's that. I can't even believe I mentioned them in the same video. But you can definitely see what her foundation is in her mixed martial arts. Like you had said, great foundational boxing. That's what you love to see out of a fighter who's 23 years old, because a lot of fighters at this age, they have that one area of their game that they're very good at, and then they have to improve upon a lot of others. Wrestling's just kind of a one-faceted game, if you will, where if you're good at wrestling, you really don't have to worry about the rest because you're so good at that. With Jauregui, I do feel like she can improve upon the other parts of her game, but her one sort of sword, if you will, that is very sharp, is so effective at this stage of her career that I really do think she can go out there and outstrike a lot of fighters in this division. Not in the top 15, of course, like Marina Rodriguez with, like, this lady on fire, but Marina Rodriguez has been in the UFC for years now at this point, but I do feel like Jauregui is almost like an earlier version of Rodriguez. That's exactly what came to mind when I looked at her film.
Trains with somebody who's great in a lower weight class, such as this, Silvana Gomez Juarez, La Malvada at Entram Gym. It's going to be iron sharpening iron. You have Johnny Munoz Jr. there, and Yasmin Navarrete to round it out. But everybody in the room there, obviously having a champion in Brandon Moreno, was able to prop that gym up to high heights. You saw a lot of fighters out of Entram Gym on Contender Series and in the UFC last year. You're going to see even more this year. And I know Moreno's moved on to Glory MMA and Fitness, but if we look at it for Jauregui, I was watching one of the promos for her fight. At 14, she got into kickboxing because she was bullied in school. So like a GSP origin story. For Yazmin Lucindo, different origin story and not as good. It's kind of, it's unfortunate, but in 2021, Guilherme Cruz wrote an article on Lucindo. The title was MMA Prospect Yazmin Lucindo turned pro at age 14 to defend mother aunts from domestic violence. And it's unfortunate and it's crazy And for Lucindo, she's a main training partner of one, Matt's favorite fighter, Vina Jandiroba. So you do love to see that. But for Lucindo, I looked at this as, okay, she gets into MMA as, a Muay Thai artist. And then I go watch her fights, having that knowledge in my head, and I thought, what the fuck? She's not a Muay Thai artist at all. She throws a really good right kick to the body, up kind of close to the shoulder of her opponents. She stands back and throws arm punches. And then she goes for the takedown. It's lights out. Like, she's wrapping the legs like Khabib up against the cage. I was really, really impressed by Lucindo with her groundwork, the way that she's able to flow through positions, multiple takedowns in fights. She doesn't really slow with her wrestling as the fight goes on. Her striking gets more labored, for sure. But I really did like what I saw. And oh, by the way, she's only 20 years old, too.
And that's my big issue with Lucindo. It's not necessarily about her game right now. It's her age and her experience factor at this level. Like, Song Yadong is one of the few fighters I can think of who came in when he was 20 years old, and we still know who he is right now. Like, you guys probably know who Sage Northcutt is, but you've never watched him fight in a UFC octagon.
My only, kind of zig to zag where you're going with this, she did beat old Sarah Froda down on the regional scene. I did like that. And her last win over Rhea, over with, what was it?
She looked good in her last one, I will give you.
And that was a fighter that had a win on Dana White's Contender Series as well.
But Sarah Flota's a fighter who missed weight in the UFC and did not look great at all. So I will agree with you. Lucinda did look good in her last matchup. I'm just going to be very curious to see where she has success in this fight, because I do think she's going to go out there and try to strike with Jauregui, especially close in this match. Especially early on in this matchup. But I don't think it's going to work out for her at all. And I've read the same things about her Muay Thai background, about how credentialed of a striker she is, but she does not fight in that manner whatsoever. And for Lucinda, I really do think it's going to come down to Lucindo, sorry, I said duh. But for Lucindo, I just don't know how she's going to win on the margins, put it that way. It's like in baseball. In baseball, there's an escalating pay grade, so some teams only pay their players like $15 million a year, and then my favorite team, the Yankees, can spend like $1/3 billion on their lineup. For Lucindo, I like the foundation, the bare bones of her game, but again, how's she going to win on the margins? Because with her takedowns and her wrestling, I think it's good, but I don't think it's great enough to go out there and just get finishes. And I do believe she is going to have to work behind her striking, at least at a certain point in this matchup. And I just don't know if this is the best opponent for her to try to do that.
I think Lucindo has a ground advantage over, and it's going to be weird. I think she has a ground advantage at strawweight over a lot of different fighters. I think she's going to make it really interesting. And in this matchup, I think she has a distinct advantage because Yazmin Jauregui was getting ready for a fight against Estela Nunes. The fight was called off July 14th. Carlos Contreras-Legaspi tweeted that Lucindo is in on the matchup. So Jauregui already had a camp going for somebody who only strikes. Estela Nunes is a terrible grappler in this division defensively.
Yeah, I would agree.
So it's striker versus striker. It's a fun fight. It's boxer versus kickboxer. It would have sold tickets, butts and seats at the Apex or Pachanga Resort and Casino outside of San Diego. But now in this matchup, you got to get ready for a grappler in Lucindo. Lucindo is already getting ready for a lot of different strikers.
So Lucindo's not Damian Maia, though.
No, but she's pretty damn good at this women's strawweight division, Matt.
I think at 20 she is going to struggle in the grappling department. Just because I say it doesn't mean I'm right, but I really do feel like her physicality and her experience at this level is going to do her a disservice. That's just me being honest.
Jauregui open a -260 favorite, -275 right now. If you look at it for Lucindo, open a +220. I guess rather, Jauregui open -260, -215. Lucindo has gained open +220, +175. So Matt, I do expect the fighter out of Mexico in Jauregui to be favored by the fans. I'm going to say over under 70% Jauregui.
I was thinking like 84, so...
Oh my god.
Way more.
610 total votes, 94% Jauregui, 80% by decision. For the 6% that have Lucindo, 74% by decision. Do you guys realize she's been fighting one-round fights and she hasn't fought in over a year?
I do think it will go to decision, though. I do agree with them on that.
I think Jauregui's going to get the win in this one, but I'm serious. If Yazmin Lucindo takes her down in the first round, she takes her down in the second round, the third round, she wins this fight. Like, I have this one lined as a 50-50 type of fight. I know we disagree on this. I think Lucindo has that type of wrestling and jiu-jitsu. If she decides to strike for strike's sake, she holds herself back and throws arm punches. You lose to Jauregui that way. Jauregui has that type of boxing, that bite down on the mouthpiece, move forward, throw in combination, back you up, punish you to the body, throw the uppercuts. Jauregui is that striker. She's very, very polished. Lucindo has great jiu-jitsu. I've seen good takedown defense from Jauregui. I haven't seen it in big-time 3-round fights, and level of competition for these women actually favors Lucindo over Jauregui. I do like Jauregui in this matchup. I'm eager to see this one. Surprised by the odds, surprised by the fan vote here.
Even if Lucindo out-grapples Jauregui, I'm still not going to be sold on her as a grappler at this level. That's just me being 100% transparent. I do think she can have success in the clinch, though. I do think the elbows are going to be really important. And just sort of the dirty boxing range in general. Because Jauregui does like to have a lot of her success in that open cage. It's very clean when you look at her technique. Whereas Lucindo, I do feel like she can excel on some of the in-betweens, but I do agree with you. I think for Jauregui, with her overall boxing, going to the body, going to the head, I do like her output. So ever so slightly going to favor her, but I'm curious to see overall just how long these ladies are in the UFC or what their overall ceilings can be.
Yeah, somebody is just beating the pavement, smashing their steering wheel. You guys talked 10 minutes about debuting women's strawweights. You need to know this information when you go to B-Dub-Dubs and you have all these facts, so you can thank the boys. But both of us going with Mexico's Yazmin Jauregui. I think this is a giant red flag fight, so stay away, watch it, pop popcorn, all that jazz. Should be a fun one, and we have a big-time bantamweight main event coming up. Marlon Vera, Dominic Cruz. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.